Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1066, 1066, March the 8th, 2020, Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, don't forget to get your vote in for Dumbass of the Week in the comments section of this video. And please get your comments in by 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, keep in mind we have a time change for most of us, I believe. So I'll be pushing our clocks forward. So don't forget to push your clocks forward. That's always fun. And I like when we push the clocks back in the fall, but I don't like it so much when we have to move them, or when we move them up, but I don't like pushing them back so much. It takes about a month to adjust to that hour time difference. Although I like the fact that, you get off work and still got several hours of daylight, but I wish we would just stay with one of the two. I don't really like the time change. I understand why we used to do it, but I don't think it makes sense anymore. And I wish we would just not mess with the clocks anymore. I think that would make me a little happier. Anyway, don't forget to get your picks in. Now, I already know who my dumbass of the week is. I figured that out about 3 days ago. Yeah, when Brian Williams of Lion Brian Williams of MSNBC did that little segment where they tried to point out that if Bloomberg would have taken all that money, about $500 million, about $500 million, and dispersed it out to the American citizens, everybody would have gotten about $1 million. Man, I looked at that within like 3 seconds. I looked at that and thought, wait a minute, that wouldn't be $1 million per person. That would be like a little over $1 per person. So I actually did the math on my calculator. And if you take the roughly $500,000 or $500 million, 500 million roughly, and I know it was more like 600 and something, but just as a round figure, about $500 million, which is apparently what Bloomberg spent, if you were to disperse that amongst about 327,000 million people, what you would end up with is right around $1.09 per person. Not $1 million. You can only imagine how pissed off Lion Brian Williams was after that aired and he got off the air and started getting hammered on Twitter, because there had to be a lot of people within his support team. He's got producers and secondary producers and all kinds of people on his staff, probably a dozen or more people on his staff, that when they were prepping for that show and putting all that together, I mean, someone should have caught that, but they didn't. Nobody caught it in that whole group of people, and nor did the reporter who came on and was on this segment with him. And it's just, and it's true. Yeah, it's true, all right, in a world of bad math. So you can only imagine that after Lion Brian was getting hammered on Twitter, and at some point maybe I don't know if he ever figured it out, but I don't know how smart Lion Brian is, or how good at math he is, but once he saw that was obviously a major error, he had to probably go ballistic on his staff for not catching that. I bet you that was a nasty little event. He probably raised the roof and was probably throwing shit and probably threatening to fire people and everything else. There's supposed to be smart people behind Brian Williams who catch that kind of crap and keep people from him who are really stupid, who are trying to appear to be smart. There's a lot of people paid to make those guys look good, and somebody failed. A lot of people failed in that line of people, on his staff. And I imagine there's probably was some serious butt kicking going on, and I don't know if they'll fire anybody over it, but certainly there's a lot of at the very least hurt feelings over that. I guarantee you that. But that's my pick for dumbass of the week, Lion Brian and MSNBC for not being able to do simple math. We're not talking algebraic equations. We're not talking like in polynomials or anything here. We're talking about division or multiplication, however you want to look at it. So there you go. That's my pick for dumbass of the week. Not that I want to bias the competition or anything, but that's my thoughts. Now, a couple days ago, we reported that Judicial Watch has been granted by Judge Lamberth. They've been granted the opportunity to go ahead and depose the Rotten Reverend Clinton in person, and she has to answer the questions. Not her lawyers, not written or anything like that. She has got to sit for the deposition and answer follow-up questions as well. Now, it's not just the Rotten Reverend, but also Cheryl Mills. Oh, that's right, Cheryl Mills. But we're finding out it's not just Cheryl Mills either. It also includes Paul Gambetta. Stone Tier. Now remember, Stone Tier is the guy. Stone Tier is the guy who's working for the contractor that's hiding the Rotten Reverend Clinton's emails. And when he finds out he's supposed to delete all these emails, or maybe the message was just to delete the headers, he actually goes on a tech website and starts asking people how to delete just the header, or just like an email address or a header off of emails. And then, of course, everybody got to see that thread. And, of course, that alone should have raised tremendous amounts of questions. But, of course, as we know, everyone around the Rotten Reverend Clinton who was brought in to supposedly be questioned, every single one of them were granted immunity. And they kept no 302s. Oh, and the Rotten Reverend Clinton didn't even have to go under oath. Don't you wish you got a deal like that? My, oh my. Well, it looks like Ron Johnson will be holding the vote this week on Wednesday to subpoena Andrei Telesinko. And, of course, they're speculating that, of course, the fact that he's called for the vote means he's got the votes. I think he needed Mitwit Willard Romney, and of course at first Romney was suggesting he might not support it, but then he had a conversation with Ron Johnson, and Ron Johnson convinced him that would be the best thing to do, would be to vote for it, because Ron Johnson's got a real good position to be in. He could probably look at Romney and go, well, you know, the documents and stuff we're going to get, it's all going to be behind closed doors. We're not going to release any of it, and we're only interested in the things that are pertinent to Burisma Joe, Hunter, and all that kind of stuff. We're not looking to like dig on you. But the fact of the matter is that since your chief of staff is involved in this Burisma stuff, you know, if you don't sign on to it, well, we might just have to talk about that too. So I don't think Mitwit had much grounding here, much to stand on. And I'm pretty sure that Ron Johnson pulled the rank on him and got him in line. Now he's all good. He's all good. So you can bet that after they have Telesinko, and we already know what Telesinko is going to say because he's been interviewed many, many times, including just literally a week ago by Rudy Giuliani. And so we already know what Telesinko is going to say. He's going to say that while working at the embassy, Alexandria Chalupa, who was at that time working for the Hillary Clinton campaign, came to him on several occasions, more than two, came to him and pressed him to work with other Ukrainian officials to get dirt on the Trump campaign and specifically Paul Manafort. Now, Telesinko didn't want to get involved in this kind of politics and knew there was something shady about it, so he really didn't want to do anything with it. And so Chalupa goes over his head and goes to his boss, which requires his boss leads to his boss calling him in to the office and saying, hey, this DNC operative is working for Hillary Clinton, so we want to do everything we can to help them out. And so whatever she's asked you to do, you be sure and cooperate with Chalupa. And she was working for the Rotten Reverend Clinton at the time. And Telesinko is going to say also that he was told by Chalupa to his face that yes, this information is important, and I'm a liaison between the Clinton campaign, so this stuff will all go directly to Hillary Clinton. So yeah, the Rotten Reverend Clinton may be getting sucked into some more bad mojo, you might say, in the months to come. I wouldn't be surprised if they call her in to testify, and I can almost be certain that Alexandra Chalupa is definitely going to be called in. After Telesinko, I would assume that probably Telesinko's boss, the person who told him, hey, you need to, comply and do what Chalupa wants, and I assume Chalupa will be among that group of people also brought in, and her testimony is going to be very, very damaging. And so much of what will be damaging, she will not be able to back away from, because she's already admitted so much of this in her own words, in her own writing. She's already admitted to all this stuff, so there's no question, there's no way for her to back out, and she admits she was working directly for the Clinton campaign. And so I'm sure that the Rotten Reverend Clinton is not happy about that. So Chalupa may want to update her life insurance policy, because she has just become what you might call a liability. A liability. And you do not want to be a liability to the Rotten Reverend. Well, so we have talked in the last couple of days about the fact that Trump has now appointed Mark Meadows as his new chief of staff, and of course we learned that he was going to nominate Ratcliffe for the D&I position, which means he'll be over all the intelligence agencies and all the national intelligence. That includes the intelligence apparatus and the FBI and the DOJ, including the counterintelligence and the DOJ NSD and the FBI NSB, the National Security Branch, where they do all the covert, really nasty covert stuff. He'll be over all that. And of course, we had just learned last month that Attorney General Barr had appointed a new top prosecutor in D.C. He will be the top prosecutor over all 300 of the prosecutors in D.C. And of course, we know that John Durham also made a move and put someone, now this relates to his office, but he puts another top person under him in charge because he's expecting that once he comes out and does his thing, that they'll be attacking him probably from within his own office. And I think he too wanted to make sure that he had someone that would have his back. So now he's put a loyalist in to cover his back to make sure he doesn't get stabbed in the back and turned into the Brutus of Connecticut after he comes out and does his business. So you can see clearly that Trump and Barr and Durham are positioning themselves for what they know is about to come. And now that you'll have Ratcliffe over at D&I, that will eliminate the possibility of any nasty business, any retribution coming from the intelligence side of things. He'll have Mark Meadows will have his back so that Trump will know he's not going to be the Brutus in D.C. He's not going to have, no one's going to penetrate through Mark Meadows to try to harm Trump in this process. So everybody is manning up. Barr, Trump, and Durham have all put someone in who is very close to them, who they trust a lot, to make sure that someone's got their back, because they know as soon as they drop all this, what's going to happen. The deep state, the Democrats, the left, the whole 9 yards, they're all going to come out and try to use the smoke and mirrors routine again and say, well, this is Trump acting like a tyrant along with Barr. This is a dictatorship. They're using this is what they're going to say. Literally, they're going to say, yeah, so Trump and Barr are using the resources of the law enforcement and intelligence community to go after their political enemies. That's what they're going to try to do. I shit you not, that's what they're going to do. It's a smoke and mirrors routine. And so they want to make sure that they have someone that's got their back. Of course, Rosen, who is the Deputy Attorney General, was brought in shortly after Barr came in, so he already had a lot of confidence in him. But it was, keep in mind, when Durham brings these charges, I think they have to be brought in D.C. because that's the jurisdiction where the crimes occurred, within D.C. So I don't think he has much choice over that. And so they want to make sure that with all those anti-Trump, pro-deep state prosecutors who would likely be assigned to all these prosecutions that are going to go down, Barr wants to make sure that the top guy who's over all those 300 prosecutors make sure that there's no dirty business going on. And so that's why he put this guy into that top job. So now he'll be overseeing all the prosecutors that will likely be prosecuting these cases against the deep state criminals. So you can see that they're putting all the pieces in place, getting ready for ultimately what is coming, which is the takedown of the deep state criminals. And of course, we know the deep state criminals know this is coming, and we can tell by their behavior. We also have noticed in the last 2 or 3 months that a lot of left-wing types, anti-Trump types, have been taken down, have been charged with crimes, who normally would have walked under another DOJ like Eric Holder or Loretta Lynch. I mean, Weinstein would have walked. Smollett would never have had his charges brought back. They would have shut that down, because that likely is going to ensnare Kamala Harris, possibly Michael Obama. So you can see that all the pieces are being put in place, and I expect it won't be too long now. So at the end of yesterday's video, I had just a little bit of time, and I just mentioned it was headline story, but now we know a little bit more about it, about the fact that Christopher Steele was giving a speech over in the UK, and he basically said that, well, that we are not going to cooperate with any of the U.S. investigators or any of this people in the John Durham investigation, because according to Steele's representatives, we assume his legal counsel, that he fears it will be too political. Can you imagine that? Steele is worried it will be too political. That's just incredible. But now we know why Christopher Steele made that statement. He made that statement because Durham, I don't know if he was personally there, but Durham or some of his investigators actually contacted Steele's legal counsel this past week to arrange a time when they could get together and have a little chit-chat. And apparently, Steele's legal team has told Durham and his investigators that their client's not interested in any chit-chats. And of course, the Washington Examiner, Jerry Dunleavy and Daniel Chaitlin, who wrote the original story in the Washington Examiner, contacted Durham's office. And of course, you get what you always get when you contact Durham's office. No comment. No comment. So, what is the deal here? Well, of course, we already know that Christopher Steele has a criminal referral against him. We also know from Matt Whitaker, who appeared on Lou Dobbs, and he was asked by Lou Dobbs, is there anything that Durham can do? And Matt Whitaker's like, yeah, it's called extradition. Yeah, I mean, he can be subpoenaed as a witness. He does have a criminal referral against him, and if Durham decides he may want to charge him, he can charge him and have him extradited over here. So it's not like Christopher Steele maybe thinks he's got protection from the UK government or whatever, but there's a lot of cards that can be played if it turns out that Durham really wants to talk to Steele. He'll definitely get to talk to him. Now Steele, I guess, can plead the fifth and not say anything or what have you, but I don't think that'll help his case. But if Durham decides to charge Christopher Steele, he didn't have much choice. He'll get extradited and brought here to stand trial. It's funny, though, that Christopher Steele had no problem talking to Uncle Bob the Executioner. He had no problem talking to Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz. What does that tell you? It tells you he had nothing to fear from them, and was probably given an assurance up front that there will be that he wasn't going to be hit with any criminal charges, that he wasn't under investigation, and that they just wanted to have a chit chat with him. They probably didn't put him under oath either. Now there's another issue too. I mean, if you want to play hardball, of course we have this issue going on with Prince Andrew and these investigations that are going on here and elsewhere around Prince Andrew. Or I guess he's former Prince Andrew now. So if a deal needs to be cut, well, you can always go Christopher Steele for Andrew. We'll give former Prince Andrew the protection, and because we really don't want to do anything to tarnish the Queen and British royalty, we can respect that, and we would really be more than willing to make sure that does not happen. That we can protect Prince Andrew from any more embarrassing things coming out about him, if you can help us out with that little Christopher Steele problem. And they will throw Christopher Steele under the bus so fast. Plus, you got trade deal talks coming up. You got to remember, Christopher Steele was there, and all this went down with the previous government. As far as Boris Johnson's concerned, he has no loyalty to Christopher Steele. And if Trump leans on Boris Johnson, says, "Hey, man, your guy was deeply involved in trying to take me out in the coup. You got to work with us on this." So I think that they'll have no problem. But I don't know that Christopher Steele helped himself any here. I mean, it's likely that Durham would have offered him something just to come clean, because he hasn't come clean yet. And maybe I think it probably would have been in his own interest for his lawyers to work something out with Durham to give him some protection or some offer of protection in exchange for cooperation. But the fact that he's going to stonewall, the only thing he's going to do is piss Durham off. And now Durham might just cross him off the list of potential witnesses and go ahead and put him on the list of potential people to be charged. He was part of the coup, a big part of the coup. And the fact of the matter is, he provided false information to the FBI. He knowingly provided false information to the FBI. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. He also shared classified intelligence with Glenn Simpson and Michael Isikoff that he got from the FBI. That's also a violation. And my guess is you can find some more if you go looking for it. Well, we have Undercover Huber reporting that within 4 days of the Trump Tower meeting, Uncle Bob the Executioner's team had interviewed the translator at the Trump Tower meeting. Of course, that was Anatoly Simonachurov. And of course, Simonachurov 100% backed up Don Jr.'s explanation that no information was exchanged, no documents, there was no talk of collusion or coordination between Trump and Russia or anything about the campaign, that the meeting only lasted a few minutes and was only about the Magnitsky Act and adoptions. But that didn't stop Uncle Bob the Executioner. Mueller continued on investigating this, continued on for 2 more years, and all he allowed, day after day after day, for 2 years of conspiracy talk on the left-wing media outlets and the New York Times and Washington Post to continue to harp on the Trump Tower meeting for 2 years after he had learned that nothing was wrong there. From the very translator who was there, who's not a Trump supporter, by the way. Allowed that investigation to go on. Not only that, he dedicated quite a few pages to the Trump Tower meeting. And the way he did it in the Mueller report is at the end of it, left this like big question mark hanging, almost as if, well, we still think something probably went down there. We just can't prove it. That's kind of what came out of the Mueller's take, or we should say Andrew Weisass, because Mueller clearly didn't even know it was in his report. We saw that from the hearing. It was Weisass who put that together. So here's another thing, and now we know why Devin Nunes told Maria Bartiromo 2 weeks ago that they were likely going to be sending over criminal referrals on the Mueller team. Now, John Durham has obviously known this for weeks, well, months. I'm sure months. So here we have Uncle Bob the Executioner comes in right away, obviously knows on day one that they had proven 4 months earlier that the dossier was bullshit. Then he finds out about a month and a half after he takes over, about a week after the Trump Tower meeting goes down, they interview the translator and find out that there was nothing that went down there that was anything illegal or anything wrong. But yet, Uncle Bob the Executioner goes ahead and gets a 4th warrant on Carter Page. Despite all that, he dedicates almost the entire first half of the Mueller report, which the most part of his 2-year investigation was basically things in the dossier in the Trump Tower meeting, which he knew on day one were completely bogus. Not only that, after he gets all this information and has all this, what does he do? What does Mueller do after he's told that the dossier is bullshit and that nothing happened in the Trump Tower meeting? Nothing happened. Well, at that point, he obtains search warrants and for communications, records, documents, and other files involving all of the attendees. Then he has Papadopoulos arrested. Then he has Paul Manafort raided. Then he has Flynn subpoenaed. And he launches the investigation into Michael Cohen. That's all the things he did after he found out that the entire thing was a hoax. That's why them criminal referrals are coming, and that's why we learned about 2 months ago that John Durham's investigation was now looking at the Mueller investigation. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, it looks like Hunter Biden has failed to produce the financial records that had been required by the judge in that case. So now the lawyers representing this woman, his baby mama, it looks like they've now filed a contempt motion, And Hunter Biden continues to say that he's unemployed, but seeking a new occupation as an artist while living out in California in a $12,000 a month home, driving a very expensive car, by the way. He's just cruising all around town in his expensive car, living it up, but claims he ain't got no money. There's a lot of problems for Hunter Biden coming up, and I bet that at some point Ron Johnson will get around to subpoenaing him. Boy, will the shit hit the fan when that happens. But it's coming. Well. It's the rotten Reverend Clinton again. The demonic buzzard. The demonic buzzard. So she's now doing another interview. This had something to do with a Time magazine function of some sort, which I thought they were kaput. But they're having some sort of a function, and she's speaking there, and she's promoting her Hulu documentary. It'll be 4 parts, and she's promoting part 1 is going to be, I think, this week is part 1, and she's promoting that. And she actually says in this interview, she says that her in her fake documentary, this is in her fake documentary, by the way, it's in part 1, that not only she now says not only was it not wrong that she had a private server, but that she should never have apologized for it. And she says that she really didn't believe that at the time, but she did it to help her campaign because her campaign folks told her to. But it gets even better. Are you listening, Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch? Guess what else she said? She also said, and this is in the Hulu movie, I'm sure they'll be watching that very closely. She says, quote, "Everybody I knew was doing it. I know because I was emailing them and they were emailing me." Now, what's the rotten Reverend Clinton doing here? Well, she knows that there's a lot of other powerful people, and I doubt that many of them people had private email servers. They probably had private email addresses on Google or Yahoo or something like that, but not private email servers, and they weren't putting work product on their private email servers to avoid FOIA and to avoid embarrassing emails or emails that would show corruption or what have you. So it's a whole different ballgame for the rotten Reverend. But this is basically her sending, this is how the Clintons are. That's sending a little signal to everyone out there because she knows she's going to be coming under this high pressure examination deposition by Judicial Watch in a couple of months. And she's sending out the word now that, hey, guess what? I know all of you who was communicating with me on those private servers. And I'll be sure that if any of you testify against me and say anything against me, I'll be sure and repay you with a favor. She's sending out the message. This is what Clintons have always done. They've always made it perfectly known that if they go down, they're taking everyone else that they can with them. That's how they've managed to stay out of jail. Because they bring in a lot of people into their crimes. And so when the walls close in on them and the wagons start circling, they just send out the message. Guess what? If we go down, we're taking everyone with us. That's the Clintons. That is the Clintons straight up. They've always done that. They take everyone out with them. That's how they've been able to stay out of jail for so long, in case you were wondering. So I'm sure the Judicial Watch will be very interested in that comment, and I'm sure that will now be on the question list. Writing that down. Let's see, what did she say? Oh, yeah, really? Everybody knew what I was doing because they were doing it too. They were emailing me, and I was emailing them. Nice. Very, very nice. Well, we still haven't heard from Liawatha about who she's going to endorse, but I watched an interview with her the other day, and she's ripping Bernie supporters. So it's starting to look like she's under a lot of pressure to endorse Biden. She's definitely not going to endorse Bernie, I can tell you that. And she's going to piss off a lot of people on the left wing of her base. But I don't think she cares. Because if she runs again in 4 years, she'll simply move to the center. Next time, she'll run as a conservative. She might switch parties and run as a Republican or something. Who knows? It's Liawatha, you know. So I think the safe position for her would be to not endorse anybody and just say, I'll get behind the nominee. But I think that the establishment is not going to allow that. I think that they're going to apply all the pressure they can and say, no, sorry, that halfway middle of the road thing's not going to work here, Hiawatha. No, you need to come up straight out, just like everyone else did, Klobuchar and all the rest, and you need to give a endorsement for Biden. That's what you need to do. And I think the pressure will eventually collapse her, and I expect sometime, certainly after the next big Tuesday vote, especially Biden will probably win. If Bernie loses Michigan, it's over, at which point she doesn't really lose that much. And she'll actually be revealed to her that there really isn't very much support for a hard leftist in the country anyway. So she'll have to reevaluate her whole situation, and now she'll remake herself as a centrist. 4 years from now, you'll never know she was for Medicare for all. You'll never know she was for open borders or anything else. She'll be calling for just the opposite when she runs again in 4 years, because she's Hiawatha. In the meantime, she's picked up a lot of expensive wampum. A lot of wampum. And she'll probably get her a new wigwam in the process, because she'll be paid off as well. So she'll probably be getting a summer wigwam somewhere down on the coast. Yeah, this funny story came out yesterday. I think it's hilarious that you now have a bunch of people who are working for little Mike Bloomberg now coming out and joking and laughing about the fact that the whole time he was paying outrageous amounts of money, they were just totally scorching him, ripping him off totally. And not only were they taking way more money than they would normally get paid for what they were doing, these people that were working for him, but they're now actively admitting that they were totally sabotaging him at the same time. They were getting paid by Bloomberg a lot of money, way more than they would normally make, and they were out knocking on doors and doing phone banking for Bernie. They were sabotaging Bloomberg from within while he was overpaying them a lot of money. So this guy is a big sucker. He must feel like the biggest sucker on the planet right now, because they're all making jokes about it right now. And they got the money, and he don't. They got him. They got him for $500 million and made him look like an ass at the same time. This guy is way too big of a dope to have been running the country. Thank God we were spared Bloomberg. And of course, our Biden gaffe of the day. And this may be one of my favorite gaffes ever by Burisma Joe. I mean, there's been a lot of good ones. I mean, someone should put together a greatest hits. It would, and if there is a greatest hits Biden gaffes, these next two should definitely be in the top 10. So he's yesterday out there campaigning, I think in Missouri, and he actually mispronounces his own name. He mispronounces his own name. He says, yeah, you need to make sure that you vote for a real, true, genuine Biden-Bama Democrat. Yeah, an Biden-Bama Democrat. Biden-Bama. The thing is, he's going to try to run on Obama's legacy. It ain't that good, brother. And Trump will just destroy the Obama legacy. He'll destroy the Obama legacy. And everything else that Biden has voted for. Biden. So good old Burisma Biden. Burisma Biden. There you go. What a moron. But it gets even better. It gets even better. He gets tongue-tied. A little later in that speech, he gets tongue-tied. And I literally wrote this down word for word. You've got to listen closely to this. This is freaking hilarious. He actually said this in a stumbling, bumbling fashion. I'm going to give it to you straight, but he was stumbling and bumbling when he said it. But he said, quote, he said, we cannot get re-elect. We cannot win this re-election. Excuse me. We can only re-elect Donald Trump. Now that is a sound clip that they have definitely, a video clip, they definitely have to get it to RNC. They're probably laughing their asses off, but they absolutely got to get that in on some Trump commercial. Even Biden endorses Trump. Listen. Oh my God, let me give it to you one more time. We cannot get re-elect. We cannot win this re-election. Excuse me. We can only re-elect Donald Trump. You got to watch the clip, man. It's hilarious. And as he's saying it, I'm looking at the faces of the people. You can see a few people's faces, and they're like, what did he say? And Biden doesn't even know it. But one thing is for sure, Biden should be kept away from microphones and kids. Microphones and kids, they should keep him away from both. And of course, as we know, it's no big secret. Everybody is talking about it. Joe's dementia. Joe's dementia. Everyone is talking about it, and as soon as they've got Bernie out of the way, I can assure you the knives will come out. They will push him out, and then the rotten Reverend Clinton will be online. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you. Bye.